Welcome into Good Morning KU. It is a relatively cold Monday morning, I should say. Thanksgiving coming up in just 3 days. But of course, last weekend we had some sports to talk about. We had men's and women's basketball, both of whom are playing today as they get their season started. Kansas football, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you are. And cross country made history this weekend at the NCAA Nationals. We've got all that and more coming up on Good Morning KU. Kansas basketball. It is finally that time. Men's and women's both gearing up for their seasons. Both of them have started. One of them has been a little bit more successful than the other. Let's start with them. KU women's basketball, they tip off today in just about 2 hours in Scottsdale, Arizona. You remember what Kansas did last year to a Pac-12 opponent? That was Cal. The Golden Bears came into Lawrence as the number 10 ranked team. They left as the number 10 ranked team who just got beat by 30 points by Kansas. The freshman at that time, Lauren Aldridge, she dominated the entire floor. She did exactly what she does. She worked the offense, and she did it well. And Kansas, they ran over the Golden Bears. Arizona is not ranked number 10, and so Kansas might have an easier time in Scottsdale against the Wildcats. They're coming off of wins of Texas Southern to start the season and Memphis just a couple days ago, and they are 2-0. Keep an eye on, of course, Lauren Aldridge. And then Kylie Kopatich, the young freshman, an up-and-down shooter, but she had herself a game against Memphis in the second half, especially in the third quarter. And Kopatich, man, she just dominates. This Kansas team is one of the youngest in the country, and they are due for a big game against Arizona, a team who probably will make the NCAA tournament at the end of the year. Let's shift to men's basketball. They have a less successful start to the season, and that is mostly due to a loss to Michigan State in the Champions Classic. They tip off today in Maui. Lucky them. Women are in Scottsdale, men are in Maui. And they play Chaminade, and tomorrow they'll play the winner of UCLA and UNLV. So a couple tournament teams in the Maui Classic that Kansas gets to measure themselves up against. The Jayhawks are still ranked 4th in the country, although they might move around. Their loss to Michigan State, North Carolina lost, Duke lost to Kentucky. Kentucky beat Duke, so we might see a little bit of movement. What I would be watching for tonight is the way that the Kansas defense bounces back after the second half they had against Michigan State, the way that they let the Spartans just absolutely run all over them down in Chicago for the Champions Classic, the way that Denzel Valentine came out and absolutely dominated. I would love to see how that defense comes back and responds after the struggles that they had, and how Wayne Selden can come back and play a little bit better. I think he really is frustrated with himself the way that he played after the first half in that Champions Classic game. It'll be a fun one in Maui. We'll see if Kansas can measure up against some of the tournament teams they'll see in the warm Hawaii. Let's move to football. And Kansas football has obviously not had very much success. They had to suit up again, unfortunately for Kansas fans. This time they took on Dana Holgerson's West Virginia Mountaineers on a cold Saturday morning, and I mean really cold. West Virginia on the verge of being bowl eligible, Kansas on the verge of being 6 wins away from being bowl eligible. Immediately, West Virginia pounds the ground game. It's Rochelle Shell, best name in football. And now again, I'll take your Rochelle Shell and raise you a Wendell Smallwood. The little man punches it in. Yes, that is West Virginia lining up in a goal line situation. Kansas had a lot of reps with that. Now it's time for Skylar Howard to get his. The quarterback led the team in rushing, but he's got an arm too. Recognized. 2-yard pass to Cody Clay. 35-0. Then how about Rochelle Shell? Don't forget about me. That's the second of his 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Then it's the little man again, Wendell Smallwood. He doesn't disappear. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Let me tell you, I wish there was an offensive highlight for KU, but when we tried to put one in, we got an error message. And of course, Skylar Howard, he still exists as well. As Neil Everett would say, bartender, I'll take another shot of end zone. This right here, their 7th. Slow down, young fellas. 426 yards. You're kidding me. Kansas has one last shot against K-State next Saturday, but if they're going to play defense like that, I'd chalk up the L right now, 0-12 Jayhawks. But they do still have a shot. So let's take a look. Let's go to the film room, and we'll see where Kansas might have success. It's going to be in the ground game. You see they create spacing with their wide receivers. This is against TCU. You see how many guys are in the box. Now, they have good blocking on the edge, a good one-on-one block that allows the linebacker. He's got to look at two routes. He guesses wrong, and that's Keon Kinner breaks through. And, of course, when he gets to the second level, it's pretty hard to catch him. Kansas has three really, really good running backs that can do things like that. Now here in a goal line situation, it's just a basic gut. Everyone in the box, everyone knows what's going on. But what you're going to want to watch is this fullback here on the side. He's going to come make that beautiful one-on-one block. A wedge on the outside means that Taylor Cox has an easy space to run through. There's all the space he has on the field. He's not actually going to take it. He's just going to power through. And that is what the Kansas run game has to do in order to have success against this K-State defense, which is a little bit worse against the ground than TCU is. That's really where we'll see Kansas have their success. Finally, Kansas cross country. They made history for the first time in 21 years. They got to the NCAA national meet in Louisville. Now the team finished in 27th, and Coach Redwine said that's not exactly where he wants to be as a team, but Sharon Lokiti, the freshman, an absolute superstar, gained All-American status, finishing 10th at the national meet. She's in the top 10 of runners in the entire country. That is the best finish by a Kansas runner in the history of the cross-country program. Lokiti becomes only the second All-American in the history of Kansas cross-country, and she's only a freshman. The core of that team is young. Lokiti will pull them all up. You know she's going to get you opportunities to compete with the best in the country. Lokiti's going to be the one pulling the whole team up. I'm excited to see where this team can get behind Sharon Lokiti. At Rimrock Farm, there are little silhouette statues at the top of the hill before you get into the chute that runners run by during cross-country meets. Those represent all the Olympians that have competed at Rimrock Farm throughout the years. I'm sure we'll get another one here by the time Lokiti's time at Kansas is done. When we come back, Nick Couzin joins us. We're talking some Champions Classic, how Kansas can bounce back, and whether they have a shot against K-State in football come next Saturday. You're not going to want to miss that. Good morning, KU, coming up after the break. Welcome back into Good Morning KU. Joining us here is Nick Couzin, who usually is right here in the studio with us, but Nick is in Chicago today. Nick, how's the weather there, bud?
I came on Friday night, started snowing right away. It hasn't stopped since.
Well, you know what? I might be treated the same when I get to Colorado later this week. We'll talk to Allie later about that. Nick, let's start with the Champions Classic. It seems appropriate. You're in Chicago. Champions Classic was in Chicago. The four teams that competed are all in the top 15. Three of them were in the top 4. Who impressed you the most from that whole event?
I think it was definitely Michigan State. When I was back in Kansas, we were watching that game, and Denzel Valentine, he's going to be All-American. He took over that game. I wasn't very impressed with Duke and Kentucky. They had good recruiting classes, but a lot of freshmen that were in their starting lineups were kind of sloppy. And KU, we kind of saw the same team as last year. They played well in the first half, couldn't keep it together in that second half.
Yeah, and Grayson Allen as well. You talk about a kid that everyone was saying, this guy's going to be an All-American, this guy's a star, and he scores, 5 points against Kentucky in the biggest game of his season so far. I mean, it's really been a struggle for him, at least in that game. Who do you think has the most upside now after seeing them all play top teams in the Champions Classic?
The most upside, Michigan State, because Tom Izzo, he's a great postseason coach, and we always see them. No matter how bad the regular season was, they always make a great run in the postseason. And also, you can't turn your head on Duke either, because Coach Krzyzewski, he's one of the best the game has.
Now Kansas, they move to Maui, and they tip off today, and the tournament will run through the rest of the week until Thanksgiving. What result did they have to get in that tournament for Bill Self to say this has been a successful run for us?
Well, Bill Self, he doesn't get impressed unless he makes a good run in a tournament. So I think it'll be semifinals or championship. It could be a tough tournament though. They're gonna have to play after. I think Chaminade they'll be able to beat, but they'll have to go through UCLA, UNLV, and then they'll have to play the likes of an Indiana in the semifinals. So it's gonna be a tough road for them.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do. What's one player that has to step up in order for them to have success?
I think it's definitely Wayne Selden. Everyone's been looking forward to seeing him succeed in a season so far. He should already be in the NBA, but he just hasn't got it going from beyond the arc and those jumpers he likes to shoot.
That was a kid who was supposed to be one and done when he got here to Kansas, and he's still here. So I don't know if that says something about Bill Self keeping his guys around or says something about Wayne Selden just hasn't been able to show what he has to show to get him to the NBA. Let's transition to the women's side. They tip off in just about an hour and a half in Scottsdale against the Arizona Wildcats. Where do you think Kansas women's basketball is right now in terms of, compared to where they were last season, better or worse than where they were at this time last season?
I think they're right about where they were last year. I think they need to play a little bit more of a tougher competition and get kind of a better feel for how the team goes. But I like how the team is being run. They're running the same offense, the up-tempo offense they usually run. And Arizona, they're a pretty good team. They were both picked last to finish in their conferences, but they both play in tough conferences in the Big 12 and Pac-12.
I mean, last year at this time, Kansas, their Pac-12 opponent was Cal, who was ranked number 10 at the time. Arizona, they're not there, certainly where Cal was. Do you think, though, that Kansas has the potential to win the same way emphatically that they won against Cal last season?
Well, you have to look at the differences. Last year, Kansas was at home playing Allen Fieldhouse, and there's a different advantage there where, Kansas is going on the road now, early morning on a Monday morning going out to Tucson. So I think Arizona has a little bit of advantage there, being that KU had to travel probably overnight and then have to play early in the morning.
What's one player you're going to keep your eye on besides Lauren Aldridge? That's the easy response. Besides Aldridge, what's one player you're going to keep your eye on when KU plays Arizona later?
It has to be Kayla Manning Allen on the offensive end. She's in there for offense. She can get those little baby hooks, those little short jumpers to get the offense going. Besides Lauren Aldridge, obviously, who's running that offense, but I think Kayla Manning Allen needs to get it going on the offensive end, and then replacing Manning Allen if she gets in foul trouble, Tyler Johnson. She's got to come in and get those rebounds on the defensive end. Obviously, the defensive minded player there.
Yeah, definitely a defensive and rebounding specialist, but we saw her against Texas Southern have real success. Let's finally talk about Kansas football. We know what happened against West Virginia, but this time next week they play Kansas State in the Sunflower Showdown, and obviously you can throw records, you can throw rankings, you can throw everything out the window for a rivalry game like that. Does Kansas have a shot against their in-state rival in the Wildcats?
I think they have a little bit of a better chance because Kansas State is not as good this year, and KU plays at home. But also, and they'll have also a chip on their shoulder playing against. But I keep saying that they're going to win at least one of these last two games, and they got shut out against West Virginia. So what do I know?
Yeah, the offense didn't really show what they needed to. If you're looking at Kansas State, do you need to have success in the ground game or success in the passing game to beat this Wildcats team?
I think it's definitely the passing game, and that's what really works for KU as of late. Ryan Willis, he has that arm to throw deep, so I think you have to throw deep against this Kansas State defense, and they're really young and inexperienced. So just like Kansas on the defensive end.
Real quick, if I ask you for a prediction for Kansas and Kansas State, tell me who's going to win that game and what the score is.
I'm gonna keep it low score. I'll keep it like maybe 9-7.
Wow, and who's going to win? Kansas State?
Kansas State, yeah.
All right then. So Kansas goes 0-12 this season, according to you, and I would be inclined to agree with you.
Yeah, you have to agree with me on that one. You think the same way.
I would definitely pick the same. I would pick a little bit higher scoring, but Kansas hasn't shown anything close to what it takes to beat Kansas State, even a depleted Kansas State team. Nick Couzin, thank you for joining us. When we come back, we've got some news here on Good Morning KU. Stick around.
Welcome back. I'm Maggie Stout, and this is your Good Morning KU News Update. Gunfire broke out at a music video shoot on the playground in New Orleans yesterday evening. 16 people were wounded, but no one was killed. Hundreds of people had gathered in the park to take part in the video shoot, and police have said that the shooting may have been gang-related. The fight against ISIS in Europe continues as authorities warned of an imminent terror attack over the weekend. This prompted officials in Brussels to lock down the city while arresting 16 people during terrorist raids. Meanwhile, a group linked to al-Qaeda claimed responsibility for last Friday's attack in Mali that killed 20 people. A new study shows that the drug overdose rate for young people has quadrupled over the past 12 years. The Trust for America's Health study states that drug overdose death rate for 12 to 25-year-olds in the state of Kansas is 5.9 deaths for every 100,000 youths. According to the Wichita Eagle, even though the rate in Kansas is climbing, it is still lower than the national rate of 7.3. One Direction and Justin Bieber were the big winners at last night's American Music Awards. One Direction was named Artist of the Year, even though their new album will debut at number 2 on the charts this week. And Bieber's new album will be the number 1 spot. He also won Best Collaboration with Diplo and Skrillex. Justin Bieber also performed a medley of his hits to close the show. And that will wrap it up for the news update. Stay tuned, and after the break, we'll have Allie with the weather.
Put down the remote, get up, and be active.
Welcome back in. Griffin Hughes here, and joining me for the weather is Allie Fullerton, our local weather expert. Allie, tell me about how the weather's looking today.
Good morning, Griff. Well, it's a beautiful Monday morning. Currently it is 45 and we're expecting a high of 61 today. There is no clouds in sight. It's beautiful. And you know what? It's a great start to my week, that's for sure.
Yeah, you know what? That sounds pretty good to me. I would ask you how the rest of the week's looking, but of course we're all going to be in different places.
That's right.
Let me ask you, how is tomorrow for the rest of us who are actually going to have to stay here for a little bit of tomorrow? Is it going to be more like this?
It's going to be similar. It's going to drop. It's not going to be expected to get to 61. It's going to be about 57. And it's going to stay like that for about the next 4 days too. So it's going to be pretty nice, mild Thanksgiving here in Kansas, although there is a chance of expected snow on Saturday. So it's going to drop a bit in the weekend.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Let's get to where we're all going now. I know you're going to Arizona. What's the weather going to be like there?
Well, Arizona today is 80 and it's 70 already, and it's meant to get to about 81 today. So I'm already excited. I'm leaving tomorrow, and the rest of the week is expected to be around 67 and up. And Thanksgiving is going to be a low of 65. But hey, I'm not complaining about that. Great Black Friday shopping, whatever. I'm excited.
Yeah, I suppose if you're down with camping outside for Black Friday, it's at least going to be good weather. I have a feeling we're not going to get the same in Colorado where I'm going. Tell me about where I'm going to be. Are we going to enjoy the same sunny weather?
No, we're not going to quite have the same weather. You're going to be about 25 or 30 degrees cooler than I am. So currently it's 41 in Colorado, in Denver, and it's going to get colder for the rest of the week. And there's expected a low of 25 and dropping on Thursday and Friday. So you might get some Thanksgiving snow your way.
Hey, you know what? True Colorado born, that's what I like to hear.
That's right.
I love me some snow. Allie, have a fantastic Thanksgiving, and the rest of you, enjoy your entire week. Remember, hashtag worst Thanksgiving ever. Tweet at us. Tell us about your terrible Thanksgivings, anything funny you've got. Everyone have a safe week. We'll see you again next Monday. This has been Good Morning KU.